Guys of Reddit, what is your worst meeting the dad moment when dating someone new? When I first met my so's parents, her dad was outside working on his garden. I walked by and said, "Hey, how are the tomatoes coming along? They're all dead." It traumatized me for a while, but now we get along fantastically. My so and I still joke about that though. I went to her house and hung out around her family. We were sitting around the fire and telling stories. It gets a little late and me and her decide to go upstairs and watch movies in her room. On the way to the stairs he grabs my hand, smells my fingers and then says they better smell like that when you come back down. Wasn't so much bad as it was hilarious, but it was my only noteworthy one. My now father-in-law is a retired corrections officer, but at the time of this story, he was still working. I met him the first time I picked up my now wife, me 23 her 20 at the time, for a date, and he a genuinely nice guy. Shook hands, no stern talk, just the typical treat her well and have fun. So all is good, or so I think. On our third date, he decides to frick with me. I pull up to the house knock and he answers since my wife is still getting ready. Now I think about the fill, is he's quite the wino. Something I didn't know at the time, but unless he's hammered you really can't tell he's been drinking. So I come in and we small talk a bit. Nothing out of the ordinary. After about 5 minutes I hear my wife yell she's almost ready, so I stand up to get ready to leave. At this time he walks over, throws his arm around my shoulder and says, "Well, you kids have fun, but just know that anything ever happens to my daughter, my friends can run a lot faster than you." He proceeds to reach into his pockets and drop a .45 round in my hand, pat me on the back and walk away. I just stand there frozen, in my oh crap, what I have gotten myself into moment. My wife comes out, yells bye, grabs my hand and off we go. Needless to say, it was a very interesting car ride to dinner. In the end, he truly was just freaking with me, but he knew it was a father's right to do so as he saw fit. Looking back now, it's a pretty funny story to tell, but at 23, fresh out of college, it was terrifying. So clearly I married this girl. But the best part of this story came years later at the wedding. At the wedding, he gets up to give his father of bride speech. For the most part it normal, super positive, and super supportive. As he's winding down, he walks over to us and finishes his speech in epic fashion. "I wish you all the happiness in the world, but just remember, if you ever hurt my daughter, my friends can always run faster than you." As he proceeds to drop some more .45 rounds in my hand, drops the mic and walks away. Our guests went crazy cheering his speech as I put my head down on the table laughing and holding the ammo up in the air. The photographer has a great picture of this while my wife is laughing. We've been meaning to get the picture and ammo framed, but we haven't for some reason yet. The best part is the majority of our family and friends never knew about the first half of the story, which I then got to recount several times later throughout the night. My Phil and I have a good laugh about this every now and then. I had just gotten off the plane from a deployment. Met my girlfriend before taking her to a hotel for a weekend filled with games like Hide the Sausage. She told me I had to go meet her parents first, which is no big deal. Until good old Private Bricklin 18 walked into Lieutenant Colonel girlfriend's dad's house. Now he's Lieutenant Colonel father-in-law though, so I guess it went okay. I once dated a girl with a Lieutenant Colonel father. When he introduced himself as Lieutenant Colonel Marvin's, his wife yelled out, "That's right." Couldn't even make full call. Story from a girl's POV, but I'm pretty sure the dude I was dating at the time would say this was his worst meeting the dad moment. It was the early morning hours of my 16th birthday, so like 12:01 am. I had been dating this guy for about 2 weeks. He was 5 years older than me. Yes, I know, creepy, etc. And he was dropping me off at my house after getting dinner at TGI Fridays. LOL. My curfew was 12 am, so me being the 16-year-old genius I was, decided that if we were making out in his car in the driveway, that technically meant I was not breaking curfew because I was home. I was kind of a crap. This was in the early days of cell phones. So I had just gotten one and I get an incoming call from my dad at around 12:30 am from the house phone. He's obviously angry because he thinks I'm not home yet. "Where are you?" "In the driveway, Dad," I said, all cheery at how amazingly my idea was going to work. He immediately hangs up and I know crap is about to go down. I say my goodbyes. get out of the car, and start booking it to the front door. On the way there I run into my dad, in his boxers, hair all messed up, obviously had just woken up and his face is very red. He just looks right at me and goes, "Frick you." Also more confirmation that crap was about to go down, cause he had never said that to me, even when I was being the shittiest of shoots. The guy didn't even have time to back out of the driveway, so my dad walks up to his car door, flings it open, and goes, "What makes you think you can keep my daughter out this late?" He just stares at him in utter terror as his answer. Then he proceeds to say, "I don't want to see you again. At the earliest, September." It was late July. Then slammed the door and silently went back inside and went to sleep. My favorite part was I guess he reasoned with himself when making his threat and decided that, he'd be okay with seeing him in September I guess. He needed a football friend, especially 21, and he can convince to get him beer while dating his daughter. This wasn't someone I was dating, but I had a one night stand with a girl who took me to her place after the bar closed. She told me to be quiet and I just assumed it was because she had roommates. The next morning we get up and she is walking me out and her entire family is eating breakfast. Mom, dad, and younger sister. Everyone says hi and she stops to talk to them for a bit while I awkwardly walk out. They didn't seem fazed at all, but I was so weirded out that she just banged a stranger with her parents and sister right there. Maybe they were accustomed to it by then. Her family was having a party. This was a party with a bunch of rednecks for lack of a better word. I was 16 or 17 at the time, so I wasn't drinking. But all the adults there were nice and toasted. There were like 8 puppies running around us. Her dad pulls out a gun and starts showing it off. A few minutes later he's talking all sweet to this puppy and gets it to run towards him. As it is running towards him he shoots the puppy in the head. I immediately start flipping out on this guy and cussing him out. If he wasn't holding a gun I don't know what I would do. So I get in my car and I tell my girlfriend I'm too sad to be around anybody. I called the sheriff and told them the story. They said they couldn't do anything about it because we were on private property. Then I tell them they are wasted and shooting guns. He ended up going to jail that night. A few days later he tells me I can't date his daughter anymore and it was my fault he went to jail. A few years ago this piece of crap died from lung cancer. It's been 10 years and it still hurts to think about that puppy. Holy crap, good for you for calling him out then telling the sheriff. My father was really hard on guys I would bring home. I was living at home over the summer during college and my now husband picked me up for a date. I warned him in advance so he handled it pretty well. My dad was sitting on the couch in his whitey tighties with a navy bathrobe that was completely open. He was taking apart his hunting rifle and cleaning it. It was June. Nothing was in season for months. He is also mostly a duck hunter which uses shotguns. This was a large caliber rifle for deer. He was definitely cleaning that gun to send a message. I never understood that. I mean, if he's taken it apart to clean it then it's totally harmless and non-threatening. Hahaha. Does it count if I was the one being a massive tit? Once, when I was naught but a nipper and had yet learned any sort of self-control, I went to visit my then girlfriend at her house. It began quite well. Introductions and small talk, and then we were excused to the other room. I was there for at most about 2 hours, and everything went fine, right up until it was time to leave. Now, this girl was living with her mother and stepfather at the time, and when it came time to leave we said our goodbyes and she told them that she was going to walk me to the bus stop. Simple enough, the conversation went as follows. Stepdad, sure, I'll give you a lift. GF, no, it's okay, we'll walk. Step D, no, I'll give you a spin. Sure. GF, thank you, but it's fine, it's just down the road. Step PDR, come on now, I'll give you a spin. GF, no, we want to talk, and stuff. To which he replied, as friendly as anything, sure, you can do that in the back of the car. Now, I am not a smooth man, and at the ripe old age of 14 I was even less so, struggling to come to terms with having an enormous mouth, small brain, and absolutely no filter. I watched the following situation unfold, with me sadly being at the very center of it, screaming and pointing at this lovely man, a man who had been nothing but kind to me, and I hear the words "you fricking pedo" explode from the gaping hole in my face. This was quickly followed by a realization that this was a freaking retarded thing to scream at someone, particularly in his own kitchen, and so with the family positively agorp, I said the words "oh crap" and then sprinted out of their house and down the street. Good times. Dude, that hurt me. Ha ha ha. When I was a kid I was pretty picky and had an aversion to red rare meat. Over it now. In 7th grade I got invited to dinner at my first girlfriend ever's house and they were making burgers. Her dad personally hands me the rarest burger I've probably had to this day, like bleeding. Totally raw inside. Looking back I think maybe they had been frozen and not totally thawed. Or maybe it wasn't that bad and my 13-year-old self created this memory. Anyway, I was really nervous and didn't want to seem picky, so I choked most of it while discreetly gagging and somehow managed to hide the rest in a napkin and throw it away. The whole rest of the night I felt nauseous, totally psychosomatic, and was convinced I was going to die from E. coli. God, I used to be such a little bee. LOL. E. coli isn't that big of an issue with red meats. It's the prions that'll get ya. Not me, but my sister used to date a guy who was a little older than her. She was like 15 and he was 17 I think, and the family didn't approve. Finally, we invite him over for some family function so that we can get to know him and he agrees to come. I had just bought a Saiga AK and brought it over to show my dad. So here we are, standing in the living room, holding an AK-47, and who happens to walk in? My sister and her then boyfriend. I will never forget the look on this kid's face. He was terrified. They broke up shortly after and we still make fun of my sister about it. Okay, so I meet this girl my freshman year in HS. I'm super into this girl but she's in a relationship that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. The next year, she moves to a few cities away and I don't see her anymore. Fast forward to around a year and a half ago. I'm on my way back from the store and I get a message from this girl I never thought I would see again. Apparently her and her now ex were having a lot of issues at the time. Came to me for help. I drunkenly admit my feelings towards her as they were strong as ever now. We start talking and eventually get into the dating phase. Yay, time to meet her family. Her dad is kinda shifty, so I met her mom. It's going alright. Talking and getting to know each other and stuff. We're from a small area so she starts asking about my family, who my grandparents are and whatnot. I tell her my grandfather's name and boom, me and this girl I'm madly in love with are apparently second cousins. The first time I met my first ever girlfriend's father, he called while we at the movies as there was a family emergency. We rushed out to his car and she quickly introduced us. We shook hands, exchanged brief pleasantries and off they went. It wasn't until later that night I realized my hand went straight from being inside his daughter to shaking his hand. I have been dating this girl for nearly a year now. She is Finnish and when I visited for Christmas last year the whole family celebrated the day before. I arrived on the 23rd. It's traditional for Finnish families to have a sauna before the meal. So the women go first and then start to prepare the meal once they come out. Once out the males then sit in the sauna till the meal is ready. If you don't know anything about Finnish saunas, it's normal for everyone to be naked. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. And girlfriend asks across the room if I'm fine with being naked and before I can reply her dad from the next room bellows out of course he is, so 20 minutes later I'm sat in the sauna bollock naked with most of the males in her immediate family. Everyone is talking and it comes to a silence so the father addresses it with asking me how I met his daughter. I have never had such a nervous conversation in my life. Back in high school I started seeing my then boyfriend. I ended up sleeping over at his house one night early into the relationship. I woke up in the morning and was wearing just my bra and underwear. Decided it would be okay to sneak to the bathroom. Who did I bump into in the hallway leaving the bathroom? His dad. However, not my worst first meet the dad story. When I first started dating my now husband, we were both still living with our parents. Went over one afternoon to lay by his pool. Decided to have our afternoon delight. Well, partway through we hear a car coming into the garage. He quickly pulls out and ejaculates into my chin and hair. He grabs me and my clothes and shoves me into the bathroom attached to his bedroom while he gets dressed at the speed of lightning. I stand there shell shocked and try to get the mess out of my hair and off my face. I then have to go out into the living room, from the direction of his bedroom, and meet his father, who is a doctor and fairly intimidating man. He definitely knew, and that was definitely the most awkward meet the dad moment I've ever had. Forward. I married this girl. When I was 16, my girlfriend wanted to introduce me to her father. She was raised by her grandparents, but whatever. I lived in a hick town with lots of teen pregnancy. It wasn't uncommon. So we travel 45 minutes to a dilapidated bungalow in the middle of nowhere. Her dad comes out, dressed in a grey t-shirt and dirty overalls, looking like an even more hillbilly version of Grizzly Adams, missing at least half his teeth, wild eyes, huge beard, nicotine-stained fingers, the works. He looks me over, waves me inside, sits me down on an honest-to-God church pew, and asks, "Have you given your heart to Jesus, son?" Then he laughed and offered me a beer. We had a nice chat and my GF and I left. It was on the ride home that she revealed to me that her father murdered her mother and another man, tried to kill himself, served 12 years of a life sentence, and suffers from bouts of paranoid delusions and PTSD. Needless to say, it was an awkward ride home. I was about 19, had been seeing this girl for a little while. She lived in a house. Her bedroom was in the basement, stairs leading up to the kitchen. The first time I stayed over at her place, she had to work early in the morning. I woke up as she was getting ready, and she told me to go back to sleep. She only had to go in for a couple hours and she'd come back and wake me up. Couple hours later, I am woken up by the sound of someone coming down the basement steps. It was my GF's sister, whom I had never met, carrying laundry for the washer and dryer in another part of the basement. She looked at me, freaked out, and ran back up the stairs. Luckily, GF had just gotten home from work and was in the kitchen. Sister ran up the stairs, freaking out, and exclaimed, "There's a half-naked man in your bed." GF responded, "Half naked? When did he put clothes on?" Unfortunately for me, the sisters lived with their father, who was sitting at the kitchen table having his breakfast before heading to work himself. I went upstairs. He didn't say a word, just stared at me for a good long while, turning red. I said nothing. I was a terrified kid. After an eternity, he got up, turned to my GF, said, "We'll talk about this later," and left. I don't know if they ever did, but she and I have been married for almost 10 years now. My father-in-law and I have never discussed how we met. The sister, though, likes to bring it up at Thanksgiving and such after a couple glasses of wine. We're naked in bed, at the girl I'm dating's house. I've just finished going down on her. Her S-faced mum comes in and sits on my side of the bed to start talking about her evening. The girl I'm dating starts trying to give me a handy under the bed. It was supposed to be a casual dinner at a diner, so I decided to wear a t-shirt with my favorite sports team's logo, the Philadelphia Eagles, on it, thinking it'd be a decent conversation starter. Turns out her father is a huge Redskins fan. After an awkward moment I said, "Well, frick Dallas." "Right?" He laughed and said, "You have that right." Met my girlfriend's dad after a few months of dating. Both parents were cool until later in the night, and a few bottles of wine later, I got the impression he thought his daughter was too good for me and I was temporary, and kept making jokes about my height. I'm 5 feet 9 inches, kinda average. I showed him and married her a few years later. We're cool now. Had a friend who went over to meet the parents. They sat down him, the girlfriend, and her dad. He gave him a beer. They joked for 30 minutes. When the daughter got up to leave, my friend whispered to the dad, "Dibs." He went from fun playful to angry immediately. 17 years old, meeting my girlfriend's large police officer stepdad. She gave me a love bite the day before and he spots it as I'm leaving the house. He asks me what it is and trying to laugh it off I say, "Oh, I fell down the stairs, haha." His response was, "You bring one of those into my house again and you fricking will be falling down the stairs." Still not sure if he was joking or not. Probably not. I was 16. First time meeting my new girlfriend's dad at her house. We sat downstairs and exchanged small talk for a half hour or so. Then I went upstairs with the girlfriend. He walks in about 30 minutes later and we are making out on her bed. I look over in shock and all he says is, "Don't make me fricking hate you already." We never spoke of it again. That was 9 years ago. We got married last month. I was sneaking down the stairs at 6 AM. Her dad was up making coffee in a tank top and his underwear and we immediately met eyes. "Hey sir, I'm leaving. Tell, insert her name. I'll text her later. I would have won gold in Olympic speed walking." When I was 14 I moved into this super small country folk town and I was from Houston. I'm white and looking back on it, it's super cringy, but I sagged my pants and finished every sentence with the word dog. If you've ever seen the Cleveland show, I was basically Roberta's boyfriend. I think that's her name at least. So this chick at this new school asked if I wanted to go to her parents' wedding. She said a lot of people from my school were going and she'd like to see me there. Long story short, every adult there laughed at me for sagging, especially the girl's mother because she knew her daughter liked me. We were having a conversation and out nowhere the mom says, "So, do you like my daughter? Yay. She's really nice. You know if you get with her, there's not gonna be any more sagging around the house." My response? Yay. Well, I guess you'll just have to live with me having my pants around my ankles. Wasn't even trying to be dirty, I swear. It was supposed to be joke about my sagging, but the mother thought I was going to be receiving BJ's 24/7. TL. DR told a chick's mom that when I'm with her daughter my pants are gonna be around my ankles. When I went to meet my wife's parents for the first time, overseas, she told me a few weeks earlier that he worked in the government in the National Security Department. They didn't know what he does and I'm pretty sure he doesn't want them to know either. Frick me. So I'll land after a 14-hour flight dazed and confused, changed into a suit that was wrinkled during the flight in the airport bathroom and make my way over to their home. They made a reservation to a seafood restaurant specializing in blowfish. All I could think about is the Simpsons episode with Homer almost dying after eating blowfish. We talk before the food comes out and things are going well. Usually parents love me so it goes as expected. The father orders and I'm sweating bullets because he orders the blowfish. After 15 minutes, the meal comes out and I'm relieved to see that the fish is family style on one big plate. But just in case, when I scoop my portion, her parents wanted to scoop for me but I insisted, on the opposite side from where I was sitting, just in case. But then I wonder if he's playing mind games with me and thought I would do that and eventually eat the poisonous side. I nervously eat and answer questions, which I've meticulously prepared for by preparing for it like a job interview, while trying to rid myself of the thought of death. They love that I'm an eater and order more. Crap, sweating bullets the whole time. Having not slept for at least a day because I was so nervous, and thinking I might die soon. I actually think I did pretty well. After dinner we go back to their home and her parents instruct me to stay in their daughter's room, with her in it. Is this a trick? A gotcha moment? I think the blowfish poison might have already taken over so I don't care. My wife thinks it's funny to get frisky and watch me squirm. DM. HS. We just celebrated 3 years of marriage. As we were getting out of the car, her parents waiting on the porch to meet me for the first time, she tells me that she is 15, not 18. I was 20 and in the army at the time, and she had told them I was 17 and a high school senior. My girlfriend and I were best friends before we started dating. I'm from Virginia and she's from Oklahoma. I go to school in OK, which made me not want to jump into a random relationship that may not last if it had to become long distance. I ended up meeting her dad because her cousin was having a baby, and me being the soft human I am, wanted to go hold a cute butt baby. So my GF, 3 friends, and I made the drive to the hospital. I had no idea that her entire family was going to be there, but it was fine. I'm usually pretty good around parents, since I totally had a huge butt crush on her, and it was clear to everybody but her that I did. I was trying to make a good impression on her family. I started by trying to talk sports with her dad, which he had no interest in doing, so that was a fantastic start. But I ended up getting along with her stepmom really well. I should have picked up on her stepmom telling me how great it is that I'm in touch with my feminine side. But oh well. I get to hold the baby and I'm happy as heck because the baby is cute as crap, and I'm enjoying it. Her dad is more of a manly man and didn't really get why I was enjoying it, and made it clear that he didn't want to hold the kid, despite me trying to hand it off to him. Her dad ended up taking us out for dinner and he didn't really want to talk to me, which is fine. I just talked to her stepmom the whole time. After dinner we were saying our goodbyes, and in proper guy friend fashion, I slapped one my buddy's asses that was there. Played football. It's a pretty common thing to do. After I slapped his butt as a joke, I looked up and saw her dad staring at me. I think I was just totally caught off guard, and I just stared back for a second, and just nodded and walked to the car. Probably could have made a joke out of it, but I was nervous for some reason. A few days later I was talking to my now GF and she said that her dad and stepmom were talking about me to her, which I took as a good thing. I thought I made a good first impression, but then it clicked in my head that they definitely thought I was her gay best friend, and they thought that for a while, even for a little bit while we were dating. Took a while to convince him I was straight, and I wasn't dating his daughter as a cover-up, but we get along pretty well now, so that's how my GF's dad thought I was gay. So when I met my girl's dad, the first thing he told me was that I needed to show that I was worthy of her. I was pretty hesitant because I didn't know what he meant, and then he asked me to name a word that starts with the letter V that she would be hesitant to say. Immediately I was like Voldemort, that was just what he was looking for, and he told me I could come over for dinner anytime I wanted. He even told me I could spend the night and that there were condoms under the sink. That dad's name? My first girlfriend's father spent a full hour showing me his sword collection before finally looking me straight in the eye and saying I think it's clear what I mean to say. Legit had only gone over to play Monopoly with her. This was 7th grade, and was so mortified I came up with a fake reason to leave and bounced. Goofing off and playing Nerf hoops in the apartment with my college girlfriend the day before her parents came to visit to size me up. I took it to the hole and she was crowding the paint. There was an inadvertent elbow on my part, and a subsequent black eye on her face. Awkward dinner, to say the least. I met this Dutch girl in London, a few weeks after we fly to Amsterdam to meet the parents. We all sat in their flat nodding and smiling. The mum had made an apple pie as big as the coffee table. Neither of the parents could speak English and it was all very uncomfortable. 8 months later we got married. My new father-in-law made a speech in almost perfect English. When I asked him how it was possible, he said I knew you were soulmates and I wanted to be able to talk to me new family. My now wife is from Malta. We met in London after she moved here. 5 months in we were going to Malta together. First time meeting her family and I am anxious AF. The day before, we get a call from her mum saying her dad is ill, has chest pains and they are taking him to hospital for a checkup. We land in Malta, hot as heck on a bad day, and her brother picks us up from the airport. We get to the car and he says, listen, dad is worse than we said. He had a heart attack yesterday. Frick. We head to her sister's place, where we are staying, then straight to the hospital. Her dad is oldest of 14. They are all there. I'm tall and ghost white, in a country of short, tanned people. I stand out. 28 eyes turn on me the second I enter the room. Suddenly I am the center of attention in a room where a man nearly died. I immediately turn tomato red and introduce myself to my now father-in-law, who doesn't speak English very well, and engage in small talk, with a dozen people staring at me. Worked out in the end, but frick me that was intense. It doesn't look like my ex-BF posted in here. It's been years, so maybe he doesn't use Reddit, but I've got a freaking story from the first, and only, time I took a serious partner home. I have cool parents. No really, we were having a great time, drinking, smoking weed and playing Quelf. It's a unique board game, but gameplay details are unnecessary. Dad asks if anyone needs anything as he's going to go get some more drinks upstairs. We all reply and he leaves. He comes down a few minutes later and he has a towel wrapped around his head, ninja style. We all laugh. He is a goofy guy and it wasn't exactly out of the question for him to do something like this. Time goes by, we drink more, move on to playing some other game, and slowly a drop of blood begins to drop down from dad's makeshift bandana. What the frick? We start questioning him and remove the bandana to find he has a giant freaking gash in his skull. BF is freaking out. We have to go to the hospital and all that, but dad refuses, and explains that it's no big deal. He just fell down when he was getting beer in the garage. I take boyfriend upstairs to calm him down. Sure, dad definitely needed stitches, but I can't force him to go. and we're all too drunk to drive anyway. Ambulance isn't an option, too expensive. He's starting to calm down, and we begin to walk to the garage for another beer. The front room has 4 windows running vertically to the left of the front door. The second to the bottom one is completely shattered. There's glass and blood everywhere, and I slowly bend over to pick up a piece of my dad's scalp off of the ground. BF panics more. We get into a fight. I can't force my dad to do anything. It's not like I wasn't freaking out too. Dad has black eyes the next day from obvious head trauma. I've never brought anyone home to my parents since. Went on a few dates with a Jewish girl. I'm Catholic, but neither of us cared about each other's religions. 3 dates in, I go over to her house to have dinner with her parents. The moment I stick my hand out to shake her dad's hand for the first time and say it's a pleasure to meet you, he says, "Why aren't you Jewish?" Invited to dinner with her parents. Her dad shows up, buff, taller than me, completely emotionless throughout the whole dinner. I was curious what he did for a living, so I asked. He said he was a former soldier who was dispatched all around the world. This didn't sound like regular GIs. He was probably special ops or a Navy SEAL. I tried to get him to talk more so the atmosphere didn't feel so tense. He talked about stuff like jumping out of a plane because it was about to go down, and how he has to go to the academy once every quarter to train people in hand-to-hand combat. Oh, did I mention that we had this dinner because I knocked up his daughter accidentally? It was an intense dinner. In high school, I always wanted to go meet the father before leaving with his daughter on a date, as a sign of respect. Plus I just don't get intimidated in those situations. I had been talking with this girl for about a month and we finally got a weekend to go on a date. I go to pick her up and knock on the door and she answers, kind of nervously, and says her dad wants to meet me. I was fine with it, so I step in, and round the corner, her dad is sitting at the dinner table, cleaning his gun. So cheesy I almost laughed. He gave me the usual run of conversation, but I could tell he was really trying to intimidate me. When we left he was like, "Well, I'll probably have this thing assembled by the time you get back. Best have her back on time." I really was never fazed by it, just rolling my eyes internally. Fast forward, the date sucks. Not feeling it. We run by a sporting goods store before leaving town as we both needed something. I grabbed what I needed, as did she, and then she had to go to the restroom. While she was in the restroom I stumbled across a cheap gun cleaning kit, and I definitely have to buy it. Dropped her off, and as she was about to get out of the truck, and I handed her a bag and just told her I got something for her dad. She never looked at it, just gave me a perplexed look, went inside, and I drove off. The next day she texted me and said her dad didn't want her to see me again. Perfectly fine with me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.